let's get to show of it. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the Economic Development Commission to order. Today is Thursday, June 12th. Do we have any comments on the minutes? Questions, changes? Okay, do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Reports. Who would like to go first?
Morning, everyone. Maybe we'll get through most of the day without rain, too. That would be a lovely thing. Few short things. First of all, our gala on May 31st was absolutely fabulous. For all of those who were unable to attend, you missed a roaring 20s evening. It was just absolutely wonderful, and we were pleased. Now that that's over, and the wine walk at Old Avon Village, which is where my office is over, the main push for us is to promote summer events, to do our membership and guide ads so that we can get the guide going for early fall. I have given you Dream Ride. We're also working on that. We are part of the process, and it is the weekend of April 22nd, 24th. And so you've got the information. It also has a fabulous concert on Saturday night, Lone Star. And the other thing is that we have arranged for the last couple of years to offer a Farmington Valley discount to any business or individual who wants to have a booth. During that Sunday, there's over 5,000 people walking around the grounds, and there are a lot of vendors and booths and auctions and music. And so if you know of anybody that may be interested, it's only $150, and you get the booth and you get a pass. And it's an interesting opportunity to get visible to not only the Valley and Connecticut, but the East. And let's see. With the Trails Council, I don't know how many of you remember when we did Preserve America. Part of that grant money was to have a spiral-bound, expanded trail guide that had historic sites and restaurants and businesses and all those things along the trail. Trails Council has decided that that is so outdated that they're going to try to reinstitute. So we're working on revising a new trail guide. I don't think that will happen within calendar year 2014, but it should be out in 15. So I'll keep you abreast of what's going on. In terms of state tourism, I was unable to go to the tourism conference, but they did unveil the new, actually rather exciting marketing plan, and you should be seeing it on television. Zin and Zip and all sorts of other interesting things. And there are about 200 of those, and they're going all over. The major push right now is billboards on 95 and Grand Central Station. Everything in Grand Central Station for 3 weeks will be totally Connecticut. So it looks like the new marketing firm is doing a really good job. The other wonderful thing is state tourism and DECD decided to not drop any dollars, and the legislature has decided to agree with that. So it will be very interesting. This may be the first year in the last 4 years that tourism districts receive their funding in July, as opposed to waiting until November to get the funding because the state doesn't know what it's doing. So that's what I know. Questions?
Well, if they do the trail guide, make sure it's small enough so people can take it with them.
It will be bigger.
8.5 by 11?
No. And I don't know that it's spiral bound. It's also going from New Haven all the way up to Massachusetts. It's going to do the entire Greenway. So it's
a mobile app?
It's quite a. At some point in time, yes. Every single time somebody talks about those kinds of social media, I automatically think of you. Because you have been the force to get our Facebook page going, so I thank you for that.
Thank you. Melissa.
Good morning, everybody. I am Melissa Brett. I am
the vice president of Simsbury Main Street Partnership, if you don't know. Also, my husband and I own Weldon Hardware here in town, which is actually celebrating 130 years this year of being in business continuously for this town. Not personally, but our business. Just a couple things that I would like to talk about with Simsbury Main Street to update you guys. First of all, next Thursday, I think Sarah talked about last month, is the Step Up Conference that's going on at the high school from the Department of Labor is offering to small businesses. We have let all of our business members know because they would like everyone to RSVP by next Tuesday. Hopefully you guys can drop by. It's a free conference to help small businesses get all the information that what all the programs that the state is offering, incentives, hiring veterans or those people that are currently unemployed, other types of state tax rebates and things like that with inventions and all sorts of things. There's a lot that's going on with that. It's nice because school is out, but a lot of people are not on vacation hopefully yet, so hopefully we had a lot of small business owners going to that. We have constantly blasted our business owners. We have it right on the main page of shopsimsbury.com. It's going up on the Simsbury Town Facebook group. So a lot of interest in getting people, and it's a free event, so it's not like they have to pay. They just want to know how many people to expect for that. They also have, Business Express loan programs and all sorts of stuff. So we want to get people interested because there's a lot of state programs. Our own business went through 2 years ago, and it was very convoluted because even our own accountant didn't know of half of them that was going on for tax credits. So this was a really, I think, important conference for all businesses, especially even if you're hiring 1 or 2 people. That's what's really important. So we're trying to get that word out to people. Something, I'm in no order, I just kind of threw these notes together. For our own board of directors, we actually have some new board members we're excited to have on board. We have Nora Christensen. They own Simsbury Square, a very large taxpayer in town. They have a lot of renters, tenants, businesses, individuals. So they have joined our board, as so is Brian DeVoe, owner of Fitzgerald's Foods. Big anchor tenant over there in that plaza, and we're really excited to have them on board. Some fresh perspective for not just retail, but the differences with retail for grocery stores are very different than a hardware store or a restaurant here or something like that. So we're excited about that. Farmers Market starts next Thursday afternoon, and it goes for 16 weeks. So it will be again in the Simsbury Square on their little green. It's themed every week, if either on their Facebook group or if you're on their email blast, they send out every week. It's a theme. They also bring in some of the local community organizations are open to it. So a lot of times the bike community, the Simsbury Free Bike might come in 1 week, have a booth. Sometimes we have our Mark Rudowitz, our animal patrol officer, comes in and he shares some safety about bears or whatever. It's extremely well attended. We have hundreds come every week. I mean, it's thousands over a 16-week period of time that come in and come into this town. And something we're really starting to hook up, and we started last year and even more this year, is some of the small businesses and vendors that are represented there are now getting connected with some of the local businesses. So if you like this product, now you can find it at Fitzgerald's, or you find it here, or you find it there. So we're really trying to keep that connection for people coming back into town, or people that maybe you never experienced or explored certain businesses are now exploring them. So that is extremely excited to what's going on with that. Also, somebody's like, oh, farmers market. But, that was one of the reasons the CNN Money Magazine was one of the Connecticut best, Simsbury was one of the Connecticut best towns, was mentioned right there because we have a farmers market. So rain or, not to say always rain or shine, usually not thunderstorms, but rain or shine, it's happening. Local events, stuff with the schools, we, usually one of the Battle of the Bands is there, work with small kids. It's a great family fun environment. So we want to make sure people are aware that is happening, that's going on, it's going on for 16 straight weeks. A little business news, and I'm giving a plug for Steve Antonio. They're celebrating 50 years for Antonio's. If you notice in that, I don't know if you guys got a copy of that Boston Globe, there was a whole write-up about Simsbury and a little cute bird. It's really neat because actually that came out of the dozen distinctive destinations. they were able to get for Simsbury a couple of years ago. And it's really neat because they talked about Steve Antonio, and the Antonios, he's not Italian, he's Greek, but that was a little typo on their part. But it was kind of funny. He's like, I'll take it, it's free advertising. But it was really neat to have a business, a restaurant, where we found out the national average recently of a restaurant only lasts about 7 years. And here it is, a 50-year business going on strong, and so we're excited. We just want to give a little plug for them. They are a great anchor up on the Northway, and we're just really excited, the North Village, excuse me, and they're really just excited for what's going to continue on just for all of Main Street. I mean, not just their end or south end, but the entire Route 10 corridor, so on that one. And again, with that Boston Globe article that came out, I believe it was last month, it was a lot of chatter about that, because not only did it feature a lot of our, and I'll give Sarah kudos, she had a lot to do with that. She won't take any credit, but I'll give her credit, to get that going, because it gave us more attention to Simsbury. Not only are we a destination for the summer festivals, but for the restaurants that are here, for the businesses that are here, just to come and enjoy the gateway and the walkways and the rivers and everything. So that just gives more attention in a good light of what Simsbury can offer for tourism, and as well as for residents and people who want to move into town, as well as businesses want to get attracted into town. A lot of businesses pay attention to the Boston Globe. And last thing, 2 weeks ago, I believe, in the Valley Press, there was an article with Kip Bergstrom, the Deputy Commissioner of the Department, DECD, all these acronyms, and doing the Power of Place, and that kind of goes in line with the whole Connecticut Main Street, and that's how that originally got hooked up, is he's very close with the Connecticut Main Street group, and he wanted to meet with this town to see what's Simsbury doing, what can be furthered on, and it was an incredibly powerful meeting. Got some advertising, but it got more focus into the state of what Simsbury's doing right, what else can they do, and that just opened things up with great conversations going on with the DECD, which we're always having communications with anyway, but to have Kip have a face and a name and a place together was really important, and that was very effective meeting and showing him things all around town. Yes.
Was Main Street involved in that presentation at the high school where they had the kids do a program or an assignment on what might go in on Powder Forest Drive? Rich Correa mentioned it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't talk to Rich too much, but yes, Rich Correa went to that. Kim Parsons Whitaker, she is basically the second-hand man over at Connecticut Main Street. She was at that as well. Oh, okay. I did not get a status from Rich on that of what came out of it, but yes, our president, Rich Correa, was involved with that. So it's interesting to see what. Hopefully, I can get a report from him on that, and we can email that to you guys.
I think the kids had a lot of good ideas from what I heard.
They did. That's what I'm hearing as well. They had some interesting ones and some really, something that, maybe some of us haven't thought of. So, yes. And then even, I think another group as well talked about what would they like to do with the Hartford as well. So it was really neat for them to hear some young people who are thinking about this town as well. Yes.
Did you say you have more participation in the farmers market this year than last? Or
yes, we have more vendors than last year.
Okay.
How many more? Well, each week is some people can't come this other week, and we actually have we're having some kind of going on the guest chef celebrities. We do have 1 week Chris Prosperi coming down doing demonstrations. We have Tyler Anderson coming down another weekend doing demonstrations, or another Thursday afternoon. It's so funny because some people say, they had less vendors last year. We actually changed the way the layout was to have more open space so families can come picnic. And I know, like the baton twirlers, they wanted to have more room and things like that. So we actually had even more vendors than the year before. It got changed in the layout, so it looked a little more cramped. So we're actually looking to expand it a little more because we do have a good amount of vendors.
And what are the hours of the farmers market?
3 to 6.
3 to 6.
3 to 6 every Thursday. I'll say rain or shine, but not thunderstorms. But we do post it on Facebook if we have to close quickly, because there is a Facebook group. We also post it on the Simsbury group on the Simsbury Moms Unite, because they're very active on things like that. So if they're last minute, we got to cancel it because it's 2:55 and thunderstorms are rolling through. We try to get that out really fast.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
EDC update. Who wants to grab that one?
Well, I can start. I made a presentation with the help of Carolyn to the task force 2 weeks ago. Regarding the website, we asked the task force to take a look at the outline of the content, and Carolyn presented what our options were from virtual town hall, because there's really 3 distinct options. And we need to get clarification on the original proposal from virtual town hall, because they've modified their commitment a tad. So we've asked for input from the task force. They're meeting again the 17th. Which I will be there at, and hopefully we'll get some great feedback from them. And I think we need to, after that point, make a decision on what direction we need to go in so we can get this thing going.
So funding, this is June, funding will be available to us on July 1st. There's adequate funding, so we will have a meeting among our little EDC group of people that are dealing with the website. We'll meet with Rick Pisano and other people, as well as the vendor, and decide what direction we're going on, and hopefully we'll have all the input we need by then, and make a decision and make this happen.
And if any of you have input on the content and the outline.
Here's an outline. Does anybody want an outline? Take a look at it, or you got it?
Sent it out before, but we can,
Okay.
I can send it to y'all again.
No, you
but,
can keep that.
Just provide us with that information of whether you want it there, don't want it there, want something else, because the more input we get, the less revisions we'll have to make when we're doing the website. So.
Comments, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Next on our agenda is Griffin Land. Tom Lescalet is going to make a presentation. If you could up at the podium, and they're going to film you and record you, so you get to be on TV.
You're famous.
Good morning. My name is Tim Lescalet. I'm the Senior Vice President with Griffin Land with our field office in Bloomfield, Connecticut. And I'm actually not here to present anything in particular, but I thought it'd be helpful. I was talking with Hiram Peck about how it might be timely to come in and just kind of give an update of what our activities have been company-wise, as well as talk about any current activities in Simsbury, and also just to make the commission and others aware about the land holdings that we have. So first and foremost, Griffin Land is a wholly owned subsidiary of Griffin Land and Nurseries, Inc., which is a public company. We're traded on the NASDAQ. The symbol is GRIF, G-R-I-F. You may know that the nursery component is no longer part of the company. We actually sold Imperial Nurseries in Granby to Monrovia of California, so our name does not necessarily represent our present business activities. We are more of a pure play commercial real estate operation with extensive land holdings, some of which are actually master leased back to Monrovia. So we sold the business, but we kept the land, some of which is in Simsbury. A quick update on Meadowood. We have been conducting the soil relocation and wetland restoration work that's a requirement of that 296 unit development, and that is being completed as we speak. I think some of the last plantings were installed either last Friday or even Monday of this week, so I believe Scott may have notified Hiram as to where we are with that. So that concludes all of the restorative work that is required on that property as per the approvals and agreements with the town. That's the only update I can give you right now, because our total focus has been on making sure that all of our obligations with respect to those activities are fully completed before we even consider taking a next step. That's something that we elected to do. This has been a long process, and we wanted to make sure that it was done right and done to the town's satisfaction. So we'll be following up with Hiram on that.
Is that on this map?
It is, and I should have prefaced that.
Which parcel is it?
First of all, the handout here is a map. It's a very old map, and we've tried to update it. And I will point out right off the bat that parcels 3, 4, and 5 were, and I'll say were, all part of Meadowood. Parcel 4, and actually both sides of Barn Door Hills Road, was actually purchased by the town a few years ago. So that was originally part of the Meadowwood project, but that's since been purchased by the town.
Okay.
So my apologies for not making that revision. We tried to clean up the map, but this is actually a 20-year-old map that was done when I wasn't here. So Hiram asked that we try to put something together that would show our land holdings. So with that, I will actually draw your attention to the map. Here, you can see we have close to 800 acres of land in town. 260 of it is still part of Meadowwood, but there are quite a few parcels that are not. And as I said before, there's no particular designs on anything else at this point. The one thing that has changed, and that I'd like to bring to the Commission's attention, is on the second page, you'll notice we have a parcel next to the airport, which is 80 Walcott Road. It's in between the airport and Phonon Corporation. And that's approximately, is it 9 acres? It's hard to read here. It's approximately 9 acres. It's in an industrial zone, I believe. That is presently under lease with Monrovia, but that component of the master lease is actually set to expire, I believe, at the end of August of this year. So we intend to put that property up as being available. It's not something that we necessarily are seeking to develop ourselves, but if there was a party interested in approaching us to either purchase the property or perhaps co-venture to do some sort of development there, we'd be happy to start discussing that.
How is it currently zoned?
I believe it's industrial.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it I-1? Huh? I think so. Yeah. So I think that this might be an interesting opportunity as well as test case, if you will, for Griffin and the town to work on trying to find something that would be suitable for this site. This particular piece is not something that we would consider to be core to our portfolio in terms of building something for our particular long-term ownership. That is just not to say that we would not consider that if somebody was interested in having something constructed for them under some sort of long-term arrangement. But more than likely, this will be something that a user perhaps would like to purchase and put up their own facility. So this being one of the few industrial zone pieces that might be suitable for that type of development in town, being the location where it is next to the airport, next to existing industrial uses, I just suggest to the Commission that perhaps we could collaborate on finding out maybe perhaps there's some businesses within town, or perhaps this is an opportunity to use this site as something to rally around with the task force perhaps in promoting for economic development opportunities. So I'll leave that there for now. It's something that, we're going to start putting the information together and posting. It's not our intention to list it with a broker, so we'll be, if people have an interest in contacting Griffin, they can contact me, as I handle most of the transactions for the company. The larger map is something that Hiram just suggested that we point out because, as you can see, there's quite a lot of land in the north section of town. Meadowwood, as you can see, consumes quite a bit of the western side of this map. But there are other parcels that are along 1002 and off 10202 that eventually could be developed. Again, no designs presently to do anything, but would like to get some dialogue going with the Commission or the task force or both over time to start thinking about what might be appropriate for certain parcels. One of the most obvious ones is the land at just north of the skating center, in between the skating center and Dorset Crossing. Mm-hmm. That's been the topic of conversation for many of the studies that have been conducted over the years. The 10202 corridor study being the most recent one. So we've stayed on top of those types of discussions and even participated in many of them. And again, just would be interested in seeking feedback now, later. Be happy to come back and speak with the task force or others just to see what sort of inputs we can get on that. Obviously, we have a lot of residential land elsewhere. If you notice that parcel 2 is a rather large piece off of Old County, as well as fronting 10202. Not the easiest piece to get to presently. Activities of Dorset Crossing perhaps might be something that would facilitate doing something with that, later in time. But when you have 296 units already in that area, we certainly want to make sure that that gets taken care of before we do anything else.
Is parcel 2 zoned just residential, or is the front portion of it zoned?
The front portion might be zoned, but it's also very, very difficult terrain.
Okay.
I mean, there's a farm path that goes in there, and that's about the only thing that you can get in there without. You encounter a lot of elevation and rock. So I think it might be very difficult. Some of the planning that went into Dorset Crossing, as well as the planning that went into the corridor study, really took into consideration, I believe the town did a connector concept that would go from Walcott over to Old County. And if you look at that, Dorset Crossing is trying to incorporate some of that in its design, and that boulevard is actually something that I believe, if you look at that concept plan, is something that might be able to be extended all the way over to county at some point.
That would give you good access to the back of that property.
And with that, that might be able to get something up there. But again, nothing present, and from our standpoint, nothing on our part until we know what we're doing with Meadowwood.
And is parcel 1 have residential and commercial zoning on it as well? Because those are the tobacco barns across from.
The front piece along 10202 is, I believe, industrial, and the back piece is residential.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how long
Thank you.
have the parcels been on your books?
Longer than I've been here.
Hundreds of years.
Perhaps longer than I've been alive.
Dinosaurs.
I don't know specifically, but I mean, the company has owned land in the valley since the since the early 1900s. So some of this might have been purchased in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Some of it was direct purchase of land, other was purchase of tobacco businesses over time. So
That was the origin.
Correct.
Back in the tobacco days.
Yep.
What will you do with the tobacco barns on Route 10? What are there, 3? 4?
4.
4?
Perhaps 5. No, 4.
Will those be reused or moved or taken down?
Those are ultimately they have to come down. They're actually almost to the point of being condemned right now. They can't even be used presently for storage.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I think all the base work's been done in terms of historical surveys and whatnot to go forward with that. So that is something that we will have to deal with sooner than later on that, regardless of development, unfortunately. Some of the work that was done for Dorset Crossing actually required doing some work in the right-of-way in front of one of the barns. Came very, very close to it. I believe they even had to do some work there to fortify it at the street so that it wouldn't collapse. I'm not positive about that, but I know that we drove by one day and noticed that some of the footings had been exposed. So
yeah.
There's a well right next to one of those barns, right?
There is a well over there. It's, I believe, in front of 2 of the barns, or in between 2 of the barns, yes.
Yeah.
Hiram, what's the status of the concept of extending Wolcott? Is that, I know we talked about it, and there was...
Right away in place, actually. We had Dorset Crossing revise their plans a couple of times, and so there's actually a roundabout there. Town's first roundabout is all installed there. The right-of-way has been put in place up to the property line where Griffin's property starts. So they decided that they wanted to access their property. That would be an ideal situation to do that. So that would put a connection out to Wolcott Road.
And it would go all the way down to county?
Could, depending upon what they decided they wanted to do on the other side. So, it would take coordination, obviously, between the landowners, but the planning has been done, the plan's been roughly laid out, and Dorset Crossing is roughly...
But we haven't allocated any money to that in the capital budget, right?
No, actually, there was a lot of discussion about that, and it's private land that would provide access for private property. So laying it out and doing the planning was really our part of it initially. If the landowners wanted to access their property, we'd be happy to let them construct within that right-of-way and work it out with them, but they would be accessing private property for whatever their purposes would be.
So if that road went all the way through, it would not be it would not be a public road, or it'd be partially public?
Well, I think the idea was to ultimately make it public, but I
Right.
think there was a lot of pushback from financial interest in town not to have the town construct it. Certainly it's on private property now, so we have the right to do that. But to allow the planning to go forward and then work with the property owners in the future, depending upon what they decide they'd like to do with the property.
I'll add that when you're talking about the right-of-way that the town has, that is on the Dorset Crossing piece only.
Right.
Right.
It does not go across any of our land at this point.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is all
That's all up in the air.
conceptual at this
Okay.
point from our standpoint. This has been a topic of conversation for long beyond, since I've been with the company for 14 years, and I know I've seen studies that were 10, 15 years before that, as there being an on and off desire of the town to have some sort of connection between Old County and Tentuit to connect
Mhm.
to Walcott. So it's something we've always been happy to, discuss. It's not anything of our design at this point. We don't, again, I might be repeating myself, but just given the relations with the town over Meadowwood, I just want to be perfectly clear that we do not have any plans for any of our parcels presently other than the Meadowwood project. And most recently, our intentions to try to put something together to promote the Walcott Street property. That's not to say that we do get a lot of inquiries from various uses, but this meeting was not meant to create any sort of hysteria.
Okay, understood.
Just a quick question, maybe to Hiram. Would the Walcott Street property be a property that, similar to what they're doing with the Hartford, becoming a site, a shovel-ready, a site-certified property?
One of the processes that we are working on is establishing that template for a certified sites program in the state and working with DECD to do that. So it's certainly possible that could be one of the sites that would fall into that. Certainly possible, yeah. We should know fairly shortly, actually, hopefully, and I'll give you more updates on the 200 Top Meadow Street in a while, but we hope that that program will move forward. We hope that the DECD will be in favor of it, and this is one of the sites that could certainly fit into that.
Back to the Meadowwood, what do you think your timing is that you will have successfully completed and got your stamp of approval on the remediation so that the parcel would then be developable?
Well, the actual work has been completed, so
Okay.
we need to interface with the town to make sure that they've confirmed that it's been done in accordance with all the requirements. And then I believe we have a correcting subdivision map that needs to be filed that states that the work's been completed. And I think that's one of the final pieces that gets done, as well as sending the obligatory copies to the state.
Will Griffin be the developer, or will you have a...
Undetermined.
Okay.
At this point.
So probably looking at it next year sometime?
Possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that, again, we field inquiries all the time, and our standard response to date has been standard, just like we're not considering anything until we get this work done.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in and presenting the status of the parcels.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, our next on our agenda is the Hartford Land Use Study Effort Update and Public Hearing of June 16th.
Yes, to let you know, the new code for the Hartford property, 173 acres at 200 Hop Meadow Street, has been posted online for since May 12th. We would like all the land use commissions and all the commissions in general to come to the public hearing that the zoning commission is holding on the 16th of June. It'll be at the library in the large program room at 7 p.m. Comments with regard to what the code says or doesn't say, depending upon your comments, would be welcomed by the zoning commission at that time. Commission then, after that hearing, would have 65 days to act on that code. They may act the same night, but they have up to 65 days to act on it, depending upon the comments that are received. There are about 63 pages, I believe, in the code, so it's extensive. A couple of the comments that Planning Commission had recently
when they did recommend to the zoning commission that it be approved. But one of the things that they wanted the zoning commission to consider was how large a building could be built under the code on this property. We talked a little bit about the fact that there's an existing 641,000 square foot building on the property, and that the buildings that are shown on the illustrative plans that are part of the code are probably in the 30 to 50,000 square feet, probably a small market kind of thing, small retail space. So that scale of building is what's proposed and what's intended, although there is no specific limit within the code that says it would have to be this size. The key to the form-based code is that the form of the structures that are proposed is what's key, and so the design and the form of the structures is what's really important, how it relates to the streets, how it relates to the other uses on the property. There are two basic parts to this code, very quickly. One is on the northern piece. In one of the illustrative plans, there's a small commercial center, and then there's some residential units around that. The southern piece, in both illustrative plans, is a significant commercial part of the property. Obviously, the existing building, whether that stays or goes, no one knows yet. The Hartford will be there probably through the end of 2015 at this point in time, with a fair number of people there still on the property at that time. So that's basically what it is. If you have any comments about the code, please let me know. If you're welcome to come to the public hearing that the commission will have on June 16th, and we hope you do come and offer whatever comments you have.
How does that interface, that code, with the Greenberg concept that they're putting forward?
There's really no connection right now, Dave. That code is a separate code specifically for that piece of property. And the code could be expanded to that property in the future, but there would have to be a specific study done for that property. A couple of things. I approached the owner of the Greenberg property a couple of years ago and asked him if he would like to do something like this for his property, to put a plan in place so that somebody could come in and get an approval for it very quickly. At that time, he declined, I think perhaps still sort of a little bit sensitive about what had happened with the River Oaks proposal a few years ago. So he declined to do that at that time. In the meantime, obviously, the Hartford's gone forward and done that. So it would be possible to do something like that on that property. But in the meantime, what's happened is they have come back with a proposal for an informal proposal. They had a discussion with the Design Review Board and the Zoning Commission informally just a couple weeks ago to talk about what could happen on that property. And what they proposed was on the southern portion of the property that is south of the Northeast Utilities building was a residential component of a variety of different size units in that area. The middle portion of that property where the Northeast Utilities building is would stay as it currently is. They're there for quite a while with their current lease situation. And then the northern part of that 60 acres would probably be some sort of a commercial component to that as well. So that's what they're back thinking about now, is they got, I would say, a fairly positive feedback from the Design Review Board and the Zoning Commission. But there was no commitment one way or the other from them or the commissions saying, we think that you're headed in the right direction. There's no large format retailers. There's no 130,000 square foot Target store there. That's not part of the proposal at this time, and they were clear about the fact that they were not proposing that. But once they get their plans more formalized, they'll come back with a formal proposal, and I'm sure they'll want to make a proposal and presentation to this board as well. So it's a short answer is there's no connection right now, but there could be in the future.
Conceptually, there were a large number of apartments they were talking about on the south side, right?
That was part of their concept. That's correct. Yep. Whether they're condos or apartments is really unknown at this point in time, but the fact is there'll be some sort of commercial residential activity, whether they're condominiums or whether they're apartments. We don't know. And that's, again, if they come back with that particular proposal.
Because the apartment aspect to that, when you tie it in with the other apartments that are either on the boards or you hear talk about, would put a tremendous number of apartments into the community, right?
Well, what the Zoning Commission asked me to do a couple of weeks ago was to do an analysis of that, compare it to other towns in the area, and to bring that to them shortly. So I'm in the process of preparing that now. As soon as we get through the Hartford regulation adoption, hopefully on the 16th or thereabouts, I'll be able to spend more time and finish that up. So probably within a month or two, I'll have that analysis for you, and I'll be glad to share it with everybody.
I'm sorry, would that analysis also include buildings that were technically condos but not owner-occupied?
Well, it's difficult to get information sometimes in the categories that you want them. And so if you call a town and say, how many apartments do you have, they're not going to be able to tell you. but apartments on assessors, as far as assessors are concerned, are considered commercial property. And so you have to try to look carefully to try to split that down. So what we'll do, Jay, is we'll split it down as carefully as we can with regard to condominiums that are owner-occupied or owner-used as much as possible, apartments that are simply rented, and then single-family homes. We'll try to make that breakdown as clear as we possibly can. It is difficult to get that information unless you spend a lot of time seeking this information out. I had hoped to have a summer intern this summer to help us do that. I don't have one right now, so we'll be working on it. And we're also, as you may know, we're trying to fill a staff position. Howard's going to retire at the end of this month, so it'll be a month or so where we're going to have some tough staff time. But we'll try to get done as quickly as possible.
It's obviously a small number to draw a conclusion from, but do you sense there is a growing awareness that the town wants to promote market-based housing for people instead of thinking back in time, single-family residency sort of thing, to further attract the younger people?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, I mean, certainly I think that one of our responsibilities as a community is to get a completely sort of whole social entity in the town that is the entire spectrum of people, from the elderly down to young families, young kids as well, so that we have a balanced community. And I think that's one of the things that we need to strive toward. And so trying to put that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have the exact same number of units in every category, but what it means is that if we have a gap in our housing inventory, and right now we have gaps in our affordable or market rate or workforce or affordable categories, we're below the state level with the 10%. As we found out clearly in the Meadowwood applications. And those are all single-family units, 299 units. They're all single-family units. Some are small, some are large. But 74 or 79, I'm not sure, of those units will be entry-level or affordable. But we need more affordable units for young professionals in town so that they can come in town, work in town, and hopefully stay in town and recreate in town as well. So that's the balance. We saw that when the development for Dorset, and I don't want to take a lot of time here for other folks, but we saw when the Dorset Crossing proposal came in that their market study showed that most of those folks, or a lot of those folks, would probably be heading over toward Day Hill for their work. And so it's a different component of the workforce than we have for people that might reside in the South End and head either to West Hartford, or they might head to Avon or Farmington. So it's kind of a split thing. We need to look carefully at that and do some careful analysis about that. But my opinion is that we need to provide a balance for that whole thing. What we're finding out is that very small subdivisions, 2-3 lots, are what people want now. We're not going to see probably any large subdivisions of single-family homes anymore. The market's not there. A lot of younger people don't want to own homes. That's the reality. They don't care. They just as soon lease the place.
They're coming out with.
They can't own homes.
Well, what they'd rather, spend the winter in Cabo or someplace in Key West or someplace like that, come back and close the door. They don't have to mow the grass. So we're finding out we've really got to balance a lot of that. And a lot of us older folks that have homes find that hard to understand. We find it hard to believe, but that's what the numbers are showing us. So.
That's encouraging.
Do you want to do any other updates or questions, or do you want to jump over to Nancy?
Good for now. I think Nancy should.
Okay.
You're good for now.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So just a brief update, because our next meeting is the 17th. But we met on May 20th, and I want to thank again Chris and Carolyn for their input, updating the task force on what's going on with the website. So we're encouraging the entire group to provide feedback. But what we've done in terms of tasking the 3 sub-working groups within the task force, is to have the programs working group take the lead on that to work through the process with you guys, and then also it'll transition over to the marketing group when it gets into really some of the design work and such. So that's sort of where we are with that, and I sent a nice reminder out to the group, and I'll continue to stalk them, as I often refer to even in my working day with managing projects with folks and keeping things moving along. And so our last meeting after the presentation from Chris, we went into our first breakout. And so our goal all along was try to get folks there as quickly as possible, but we did have, through our first few meetings, a lot of good information that was shared, including some, the housing presentation I think I spoke to you guys about. So the mixed-use housing component, which with a concentration towards some density and market rate housing is also top of mind with the task force. So within those groups, and I can provide this to you guys. We made and have been working along some rough outlines to guide the groups, but we really do want them to help formulate their short, medium, and long-range goals for the task force. And so that was some of the initial discussion that took place at our last meeting, and that will continue with this next meeting. So I should also point out Hiram, Sarah Nielsen, and I are sort of the floaters. So we're going to rotate through the group, and so that we can kind of be their support, provide source materials and information that the groups need as they work through their tasks. And I was part of the programs group. They're working on investigating tax incentives. So there's been a lot of information shared that tax incentives aren't necessarily part of the top 4 things that folks are looking for when it comes to development. So Hiram's going to provide an overview of not only our program, but how it's been utilized in the past, and really looking at is that focus important to drive economic development for Simsbury. So that's some of the things that group will be working on in addition to the website work and such. And then I just wanted to show, and I only have one and I have to take it with me, but Rich Correa went to the Marlboro, Mass Economic Development event that they had, and they're a community, obviously different in ours in some ways, but similar in size and such. So this is a really great piece in terms of the information. It mirrors some of the things that we've done, not only from the very, very old folders that we did a long time ago for economic development, but then when you look inside some of the stuff that Main Street's done. So it's kind of taking those sheets, and really what we have on this side is sports, recreation, restaurants. So that's sort of what Main Street has, worked on. But on this side, what we're kind of missing and haven't done in a while are things around commercial real estate, housing, Marlboro economy, and so some things like that really pull it together. And the slip sheets really allow you to kind of pull in and put out, update easily as far as longevity of materials. And just some other pieces. So the marketing group, Rich is going to share this with them so that they can start looking in a similar way that the website, best case scenarios you guys have been looking at and best practices and things like that. They'll look at some of those materials as well. So in your travels, if you find anything that you can pass along to the group, that would be appreciated. And I think that's really it. I don't know if you guys in your...
Who's the contact on your group for the website? Do you have a specific person?
Okay, so the working groups, I should say, they had initial discussions, and we had a few folks that weren't present, so I kind of said to them, it's up to you. But Deborah Bernard's going to be chairing that group, and I believe...
The programs group?
The programs group. I haven't really had a chance to catch up with Hiram on what took place for the processes group, and I believe Jeff Dornenberg's going to be doing the marketing group. So really those folks will be tasked with keeping those groups engaged and actively moving through their...
So would she be the person that we would want to bring in for further discussion with EDC regarding the website?
I mean, you could, I can do it, she can do it. My plan was...
We're going to make this all come together in the next week or 2 or 3, knowing that the money's there in our budget come July 1st to make a decision with the vendor which way we're going. So if we can get as much input now so that we don't...
Yes, and I can talk to her about that when we get together at the meeting on the 17th. And I know some of the options you guys have as you're looking to iron out what direction you'll go in may or may not cross over that line of what we approve for funding. So, that's sort of out there too, but yeah, we'll certainly.
Yeah, if you can give me her, assuming that's the person you want.
She's chairing that committee, so yes, that would be appropriate.
Get her email address so we can bring her into the loop.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see, any other updates, planning updates you'd like to touch on?
Northeast Utilities property and the Hartford property. One of the other ones that you may know is sort of in the works now as well, is the former Webster Bank building. That, again, was an informal proposal that the current owners came in with the commission there and talked to the zoning commission about. They are looking at some residential use of the rear of that property, maintaining the front lawn, which was part of the whole downtown code thing we had, and maintaining the existing building. So there's no plans at the present time to remove the building. I did see somebody when that building was for sale that came in with a lovely CVS store on that property. That
Historic
went away.
CVS.
I wish. So they're looking at the potential residential use of that property. Those are not apartments. Those would be fairly high-end, probably townhouses. The number, well, it really depends on how it pencils out, frankly. And so they're working hard now to figure out how that would work as well. There are a couple other pieces of property in the center of town, the Simsbury property. There have been some work in terms of determining where the floodplain actually is on that property and making sure that development on that property takes place within the property that's not in the floodplain. So that work is underway at the present time as well. So there's some substantial pieces of property that are under discussion right now.
And Giorgio's property, as the apartments have been, that plan has been filed and approved, and apartments in the back?
There, at Dorset Crossing?
Yeah.
In addition to the medical office building, the ribbon cutting for the specialty housing is actually this afternoon.
Today,
11 o'clock. And so that's going forward. That's 48 units. 8 of those units will be set aside for local people with special needs. 40 of the units will be set aside for people with MS. That's specifically what that's for. It'll be the second one, only the second one on the East Coast, first one in New England to be constructed. So there will be some really interesting dynamics that will be set up by that, and hopefully some synergies between the medical offices that are there as well. In addition to that, the third parcel that's currently under development is that apartment parcel. And there are a total of, I think, 7 buildings there. 168 units total is what is proposed there. Again, these are phased things. You know, people get a little concerned when they hear, wow, that's a lot of units. Well, it may be 3 to 5 years before those get built out.
Right.
So, you know, 1 building, 2 buildings a year, plus a clubhouse, plus a swimming pool, the whole complex will be phased over time. So depending upon what the market is and how it works out is how that will be developed as well. But that's what's proposed at the present time.
All the work that was done by CL&P on their substation there, was that done with consideration that there's the potential for a road to come through there in the future?
Yeah,
they seem to have pushed things back.
There was a tremendous amount of discussion, negotiation. Dorset Crossing agreed to change their plan probably 3 times because what the town wanted to do was to ensure that additional electrical stability, reliance and resiliency of the electric component in that corridor was there. And so when Northeast Utilities came in and said, well, we're going to increase the substation size, we said, well, that's great, but unfortunately, we were going to put a road right through that area. Right. So there was a lot of negotiation back and forth, very complex negotiation between Northeast Utilities, the town, Dorset Crossing, and obviously also Reagan Development, who's doing the special needs housing. So it was a complicated development. The road is there now. The substation's obviously has gone forward. Some people have said, well, you know, you shouldn't have built a substation so close to these other housing units. Everybody knew what the plan was going in. It was all laid out from day one. There were no hidden things. And there'll be some landscaping, obviously, some significant landscaping in the future that'll screen lots of those things from the residents in most of those areas. So, yeah, everybody knew what was going on.
Okay.
Day one.
The parcel just north of Bidwell.
Yeah, the pool barns.
Yes.
Yeah, there's an application that has gone through the Conservation Commission, has been approved by the Conservation Commission for a variety of things on that site. The pool barn building proposal is to create some retail in that building, some residential in that building. There are 4 residential units in that building, as well as a convenience store on the site, as well as what's proposed to be a gasoline station on the site. So the gasoline station, and everything could be done except the gasoline station on that site now based upon variances that were granted to that property in the past. So the only thing in terms of current uses that is a question really has to do with the environmental aspects that have been approved by the Conservation Commission with regard to groundwater and drainage and so on. But the other component is whether it should be allowed to be a gasoline station or not. So there'll be a public hearing on that sometime in the near future, probably in July sometime. So.
The station they're building, gasoline station they're building up in the North Village, that's going to be owned by who? Who's putting that in?
Right.
Okay. And that's going to have a convenience store?
Yes, it will. There'll be two identical, actually. The one down here by Simsbury Square, just in front of the Town Center, will be the same thing, same size store, and both will be significantly revised from what they are right now.
Okay.
But same use that was there before.
Okay. Any update on Big Y?
That was my question.
You asked that question. I'm sorry. I should not have asked that question. That's always your question.
I've been asking it for 5 years, so I'm not asking.
No, it's only been approved for 2.
Put in the pot for 5.
My discussions with the town attorney this week indicate that we've given our final comments to the attorneys that are trying to construct this easement document. They have it, they've agreed to it. I haven't seen a signed copy yet, but as far as I know, it's all been agreed to. So we're just waiting for receive a copy of the signed easement document.
But they're probably not going to.
I think if they start this summer, it won't be open this year. It'll be open next year.
Right.
So. Lots of people are convinced that it's not going to go forward. It's taken a long time. It's certainly taken a lot longer time than certainly anybody anticipated. But when adjacent property owners don't agree on things, it takes time to work them out, so it's frustrating.
Has there been other interest or inquiry regarding the other parcels?
There have been several. I'm not the owner of the property, so I'm not familiar with the details of it, but I can tell you that I know that there have been at least 3 other proposals for the southern 6 acres of that property. I haven't seen any plans on that yet at all. I know that there are a lot of things in the works, but the owner of the property has said that he's not interested in even talking about that until the Big Y parcel is sold.
Right, well, that'll be the anchor, yeah, okay.
So as soon as I get some information on that and his permission to talk to you about that, I'm happy to do that.
I just have a quick question back to your comment regarding your housing study.
Yeah.
I assume that part of that study you're going to take in consideration current vacancy rates in the apartments that exist here in town right now and vacancy rates in the valley, because they tend to be quite high. And it's kind of, you need to build them to get people to come here, but we need the jobs in order for them to want to live here. And, it's what comes first, the chicken and the egg. But I do know that the vacancy rates in some of the current newer complexes are higher, I think, than they expected them to be. So I'm assuming that that's part of the study?
Yep, we'll certainly try to do our best to try to quantify that, because I think that one of the things that's important, at least for younger folks, it's important for them to have something that's new and sort of state-of-the-art. And so some of the older complexes that exist around, people say, well, we have plenty of units. Well, we may, but I think the reality is that the younger people really want something new for whatever reason, whether it's new just because it's new or because whether it's got Wi-Fi or whether it's got a pool or whatever.
They watch a lot of HGTV.
And apparently they watch
even though they don't own them.
Yeah. That's right. And so we'll do our best to quantify that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Other comments or questions? Are there any other grant-making proposals? This is from our last meeting in which there was a little bit of a discussion around the grant that Main Street went in for that EDC should be aware of over the next 6 to 12 months?
I can only tell you that if we come across grants on a daily basis, we're going to find out whether they would be appropriate to apply for and certainly go through the process to do that. We'll certainly let you know what's available. The way things are right now, that grant was $500,000. It was delivered to Department of Housing, Department of Housing prior to the deadline, so that's submitted. We'll find out sometime soon whether that goes forward or not. There's a lot of work to do once we find out if it even is approved or not. But if other grants come up in the meantime, and what I'm finding out is that constantly there are things like, whether it's for street improvements or for other planning activities, or primarily what the government wants to see now is things that are shovel-ready, that can be put in the ground right away. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of plans that have been put in place, whether it's the center. We're working now on the village district in Weetog, which is another thing which I'll get finished right after we finish the Hartford. As soon as we get those things in place, those plans are in place, then we've actually got something to say, okay, here's what we'd like to do. And so those are essentially shovel ready. and hopefully we'll be ready for the types of grants that might come up. As soon as they come up, I'm happy to at least find out if they're applicable to the town, whether we're eligible or not, or whether we're wasting our time.
On the $500,000 one, Hiram, is there an award date?
No, last time it took them almost a year to decide, Dave. So, 6 to 9 months, it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't hear for 9 months.
They don't stipulate that in the grant.
Yeah, they stipulate, but then they do what they do. So, no, I think that's the reality of the last time. I think it was about 9 months before we found out that we didn't get it. We were very confident that we were going to get that grant, which is essentially the same one we submitted this time. But then we're informed at the last minute that we didn't. So I was very surprised too, if you look around and see some of the towns that did get that money and what they did with it and how well they were prepared for it. I thought we were a lot better prepared for it than a lot of the ones that were granted, but we just have to go with the decision that was made. So.
The wheels of government turn
Well,
slowly.
we're a rich town too, They can't give it all to us.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's that so much. I think a lot of it has to do with one of the things that, so go on a limb here. One of the things that really bothers me is that lots of towns apply for money for purchasing open space, and they can purchase open space, but on the other hand, there are other obligations that towns have as well. And this kind of goes back to forming the sort of the full community that I talked about before. And if a lot of towns want to purchase a lot of open space, that's great. But I'm not sure why the state should pay for lots of open space when there are other obligations that the town had that we're not paying attention to. So whether it's Greenwich, frankly, or New Canaan, or Westport, or whatever it is, or towns up in the quiet corner, I think that they all have to be looked at kind of, in a balanced way, and to try to figure that out. These things clearly are subject to political decisions, once they get made. And so I have no knowledge about how that happens, but they go in the room, they come out, and they say, well, these are the 5 we're going to grant them to. To me, they really need to look at a broader look as how is the town doing with regard to its overall planning and its balancing of the community. That's the essence to me. So that's the way I have to look at it in order to becoming too prejudiced or too jaundiced about the whole situation. So.
Well, going out on a limb, would it be fair to speculate that the entities doing the grants are behind the curve in what, in reality, is the new circumstances?
My opinion, yeah, right, yeah. And I don't know what drives those things down a lot. I can simply
I think they fight the last war.
I think it's votes.
It's like, we need more open space. Yes, that was very true 10 years ago. World drastically changed.
Yeah, we have 32% of our town is dedicated open space right now. So we're clearly a third of the town is not going to generate any significant tax revenues. Now, it's lovely for quality of life and people to walk through, hike through, whatever. Some of that's public, some of it's private. But there's a balance that we need to strike. I think we did a report recently, Jeff Shea did a report and indicated that there was some set amount of vacant land that was available for future development. Some of that land, obviously, you saw on the map that Tim presented today. But I think I did a calculation, I may have mentioned to you last time we met, that the amount of land we currently have available for open and available for development for commercial industrial development would support between 11 and 18 Hartford properties.
445 acres.
Huge amount of available land. So it's got to be dealt with appropriately. We have to figure out what's the best thing to put in the right place. And so careful planning going forward will be important.
And you mentioned one time before, Howard, that there's 32 or 37% of the land is off the tax roll.
32, yeah.
It's open space, I guess, right? But there's 50% is off the tax roll, right? When you take the like the schools and things, they're not included in that 37%.
No, I mean, portion obviously. For example, the portion of the Ethel Walker property is obviously open space, and that's off the tax rolls. Whether they're off the tax rolls because they don't pay taxes, that's another matter. And the assessor could give you a better number than that, but it's probably right.
Well, someone mentioned the number that it's higher than 37% though.
Sure is. Yeah, and some of the schools have agreements with the town for payments in lieu of, and some don't.
Gets me back to my old story why Westminster gives a contribution in lieu of taxes to the town, and all the money we give Ethel Walker, they give a zip. I hope that gets recorded, because that really burns me.
I don't have any planning comments.
I know, but it's not your bailiwick, but I think our select people should hear this again and again
Heard.
and again.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add back to the grant. I know that Main Street, Sarah wanted to pass along her appreciation to Gary Dornbush, who, when she and Lou and he suggested they would help, he did a nice job reviewing the grant, and she really appreciated that. And then, we were at a meeting with Kit Bergstrom in the First Selectman's office, so he also wrote a letter of recommendation of support for the grant, DECD. So I think that also, with Anita Miller and Sarah's prompting, that was, you know, that he came here at their prompting, requested the letter, gave him a tour of the town, and so I think that hopefully will help as well.
Okay, good. Any other comments, questions, concerns, issues for the next agenda? Okay, if not, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So.
Second? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming all. You want to...
How'd your bike ride go? The rest was a record year.